Hi, everyone. I'm back, and today I have with me another special guest. This is Corinne Farago. I first met Corinne when I was doing the Finding Love Summit, and she was one of my first guests. So I just so appreciate her for that. She's a relationship and intimacy coach for couples. She recently wrote a book, which is quite a phenomenal achievement. So I want to congratulate you on that. And
Thank you.
today I want to talk a little bit about your book. And but first, before we get into that, I want to hear a little bit about kind of who you are and maybe how you got here, or who you work with, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you, Julie. So nice to see you again. It's been 3 years. We're
Yeah.
three years older and wiser, hopefully.
Very much so. And we've been through a
Yeah,
pandemic.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to have a chance to talk about the book because that's my job right now is to talk about it
Yeah.
and draw people to it. I wanted to make the teaching that I offer to my clients in my sessions. I wanted to compile it all and turn it into a book that would live on somebody's bookshelf to use as a resource, and to just help a larger group of couples than just the ones that come to see me personally. So that was my motivation, and I'm so happy to be on the other side of it. Um, yeah, it's called The Turned On Couple, Your Path to Lasting Love, Passion, and Pleasure. It's um, it's for couples in long-term relationships because those are the couples I end up working with mostly, and they're usually more mature couples. And but it really spans. It's 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And my oldest couple is in their 80s.
Oh, awesome. That's so awesome. You know, it
Yeah,
strikes me that such an important target audience, because being in a long-term relationship really can, like, you get into routines, and
yeah,
you're going one way, your partner's going another way, and it can be hard to connect, and it can
yeah.
be hard to sustain that interest,
Mhm.
especially if you're going through a difficult time, or you've been through a difficult time and you're feeling very disconnected. So I'm
Yeah.
so
It,
glad that we're talking about this.
yeah, long-term relationships, I'm passionate about them. I find it fascinating, the endeavor of living with another person long term and all the challenges that come up living that lifestyle. There's so many little pitfalls and roadblocks and it's constantly evolving, who we are as people, we're constantly evolving. Our sexuality is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So I like couples to view their relationship as a project that they're always working on, that they learn how to become interested in it and work as a team to actually have the best relationship they possibly can.
Yeah.
And every couple can do it. It's just really intention and the curiosity and enjoyment of making it better all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the nice thing. I think if you do work on it and you do get back to a place where it's enjoyable, that's a good place to be. So let's get there. Yes.
Absolutely, because we all know now, based on statistics, that people in happy relationships live longer.
Yes.
So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
and for good reason. We're enjoying our life, and our home is a place of love and support, not tension and conflict. Um, yeah, so I just think it's the most important work in
Yeah.
the world. Your happiness starts at home, and it's shared from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, let's dive in. You've got
Okay.
7 truths that you have
Yeah.
distilled, so we're going to start talking about them, and hopefully we get through a bunch of them. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but we'll
Yeah.
work on it. Okay.
Let's start. These 7 truths, are just for me, they just came off the top of my head. Like these are the things that are in the book and that I work with couples around. And to me, they're the most kind of um, impactful and potentially liberating aspects. So yes, let's move through them, and I'll
Yeah.
try and explain them as quickly as possible.
Okay. The first one is
Yeah.
moving quickly from conflict back to connection is learnable.
Yes.
I liked the way you said that because I think we experience that as something that should just happen naturally, and then when it doesn't, we get all disappointed and
Oh
hurt.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Conflict is inevitable. You're two
absolutely.
different people. You're gonna have different opinions. You're gonna have differences that will create tension. That's just the nature of the beast. But for the couples that thrive and really have great relationships, they learn the secret of how to move through those conflicts with as little drama as possible, how to listen and understand each other, how to show empathy and express it in a way that it's heard.
Hmm.
Um, they learn how to ask questions, and this is so important. When you're triggered, your brain is in a fight or flight mode. You're not really thinking um, straight. So, if you're really triggered, I always tell couples take time out until you're calm, and then work through the conversation in a calm way. So sometimes that's just like, I gotta go. I've got to get out of this room. We're escalating. I'm stepping out. Uh, but when you do come back in, you come back in with the intention of owning your own shit, right?
Yes.
Because,
Yeah.
there's two people here. So you own what it is you're doing. And then you listen and you ask questions with curiosity
Yes.
so that your partner has a chance to go deeper. Why is that? Why do you feel that way? And then you get to the core of what it is. And from there you can have enough empathy for each other that you work through it. And that's moving through conflict.
Yeah. That's
So the
great.
couples, the really good couples, they just do it quickly. They learn how to do it. It becomes a muscle. It becomes familiar,
Yep.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and they benefit from it.
Yeah. And I think when you're first starting this, I love that you use the word curiosity because I've noticed just within my own self that if I'm curious about something, I have set aside my assumptions about it. And
Yes,
I think that would be important because when we're kids, we can do that because we don't know enough to have an assumption. We can be
right.
curious, but as an adults, we know it all. So we have to realize that we don't know it all and that most of what we think we know is an assumption. And even when you've lived with the person for a couple of decades and you think you
Yeah.
know, you don't.
You think you know. You think you know where they're coming from. You think you know why they said that.
Yeah.
But no, that's the big mistake, right? We have our stories about our partner, and when we start to get triggered, then we move into our stories. Oh, they're so this, they're so that. So yeah, that's the thing that can really extend a conflict,
Oh, yeah.
extend it, and unnecessarily so. So curiosity is a gift that
Yes.
you give your partner.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. I love that. Okay, number two. Trust
Yeah.
and emotional
Yeah.
security in a relationship are prerequisites for great sex.
People want to know about desire. Why don't I feel desire? Sexuality is a problem in our relationship. Um, Frequency, desire discrepancy. Uh, you have to work with the couple in relational areas first to understand any roadblocks that are preventing that kind of opening to your partner sexually.
Right. Uh-huh.
So that's why I have the book kind of divided up into three parts. Um, the first part is about the relationship and the intimacy. Second part is about desire and initiation. Third part is about sexuality and pleasure.
Okay.
And they're all, of course, all connected.
Hmm.
And so I like to find out what's going on with the relationship when it comes to opening to sexuality, because often there are resentments, there are underlying things going on. Um, you have to have a level of trust and intimacy before sexuality becomes really enjoyable. So,
You find that
um,
true for both men and women? Is that
Uh,
true?
yeah, well, I know what you're getting at.
Uh-huh.
Women are very feeling creatures, and connection and a sense of intimacy is important to the feminine mind and heart.
Yeah.
Um, Men have, and I hate to get into gender conversations, but even hormonally, there are differences in genders, and our relationship to sexuality is one part that we notice differences in. So, but men too, they need connection and they need intimacy as well. But women really need it, and that's what I like men to understand, that
Yeah.
to open your feminine partner, you need to understand what makes her open,
Yes.
and part of that is a sense of connection.
Yes.
Trust and emotional security in a relationship are prerequisites to great sex. Yep, that's just the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know when I mostly work with women, but I know that they say to me, I'm hurt about this. I don't feel connected to him and I don't want to have sex. And I'm
Yes,
thinking, okay, we need to deal with this emotional piece. And I bet you we'll get a little closer to you being more interested in,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
It's the pathway. It's really hard to bypass that. And if you do start to bypass it and you start to shut down and you move into obligatory sex and sex when you're not feeling connected, that's damaging. It's damaging to the relationship and it's damaging to the person doing it. And
Yeah.
the partner feels it too. So you just want to have a clean slate, free of that kind of underlying drama that puts up roadblocks
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
to desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So tell us, number three, how talking about sex can be as easily as talking about lunch.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, talking about sex is very complicated for a lot of people,
Mhm.
um, depending on your cultural upbringing, any kind of underlying shame you might have about sex. And that can come from many places, usually early on. Um, and another reason people have a hard time talking about sex is because it often leads to tension.
Oh,
It
because
leads to
there's differences in what people
right
want.
differences. It's like, don't want to go there, don't want to talk about it because they're just going to get upset, or they're going to start blaming me, or I'm going to feel guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's a loaded subject. So I find that the couples I work with, when they see me demonstrate the ease of talking about sex, it starts to open them up a little bit, and then they start talking about it, and when they start hearing each other talk about it, then they start learning about each other, about how their mind and body works, what turns them on, what turns them off. um, Honesty starts to be spoken,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the key. That's when everything starts to open up and get interesting you know so yeah, I like to teach my couples how to talk openly about sex as if they're talking about lunch, or a meal,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
what they like about the flavors of a meal and why, and what they would like to add to that meal to make it even better.
Right. That's great. Great analogy. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So another one of your truths is desire's not a mystery, and there are several ways to build it and destroy it. So tell us a little bit about how we
Yes.
can build it and maybe how we can destroy it.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I say it's not a mystery is because a lot of people do get very confused about, where did my desire go? I used to have it, now it's gone. And
Mm.
why don't I feel what I used to feel? It's gone. They're kind of confused.
Yeah.
It's like, what
Yeah.
happened? But actually, desire is so much more interesting than that. It's not something that just, descends on you if you're lucky. You're just hoping you're going to be in the right space if something is initiated. It's really something that we have much more control over. and we can learn about how it works for us. And so, we mentioned unresolved conflict is a desire killer.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty obvious one. And there can be, little desire killers too, like time of day, what the environment looks like, the temperature of the room. These are all the more subtle desire killers, but they're there. Children walking into the bedroom,
Hmm.
all of the things that can create these obstacles for us just being a yes
Right.
and
Yeah.
inviting that open, sexuality or sensuality. So desire is something that we can know how desire works for us, and we can facilitate it working, by thinking about all the things that might shut it down.
And I'm guessing that if we've gotten to the point where we could talk about sex as easy as we talk about lunch, that we can talk to each other about what helps or hinders our desire.
Yes, absolutely. I like couples to make a list.
Uh-huh.
Everything from the big things to the smallest things. And then you look at at your partner's list, and you start to get to know how they work.
Hmm.
So that, if you know that morning sex is something that just doesn't work for them, then you're not going to be initiating morning sex. You're going to be initiating a time of day that does work for them. You
Yeah.
we yes, talking, communicating about what opens us to sex and what closes us to sex is really important for a couple.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And it takes getting to know yourself and then being willing to be curious about your partner.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay. Uh, it's perfectly normal to not desire sex if it doesn't bring you pleasure.
yeah,
And it seems like you've come to this truth probably because you've had these conversations with people where, well, I don't like what's happening here.
yeah,
I don't want
yeah.
to do it.
And then, that's usually linked to some guilt about not really liking sex, or
Mhm.
not having desire anymore. Where'd my desire go? Well, what was happening when you were having sex? And really, was it the kind of sex that you want? Um, were you getting pleasure out of it? Was it exciting to you? Was it fulfilling? And often the answer to that question is, yeah, it really, there's really not that much in it for me. Or I'm really just doing it because my partner, he needs it or she needs it. So I do it, you know. So it's coming back to this perspective of sexuality being for your pleasure, and both partners owning their pleasure within their sexuality and getting to know it, and getting to know each other's pleasure, but pleasure being the foundation of sexuality. If you're
Yeah.
not getting your pleasure, then it's time to start looking at what's happening and finding it again.
Finding out how you could get pleasure out of it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. Okay. There are ways to heal from feelings of shame and trauma.
Yeah. Well, you can't talk about sexuality without talking about shame and trauma. It's so prevalent
Mhm.
in people's
Yeah.
sexual history, their experiences.
So even if
To,
somebody's experiencing a lot of shame or trauma around sex,
mhm.
I'm guessing you're saying that there's a way to work through that and get to a place where you can enjoy sex in that level of connection with somebody.
Yeah, and a big part of that is letting your partner be part of the healing process with you,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
So often shame and trauma is hidden. It's not wanting to be shared. But sharing shame and trauma is a way of dissipating its power over you,
Yeah.
letting your partner in on who you are, that part of yourself, allows them to give you healing experiences like nobody else,
like nobody else.
like
Yeah.
no professional can do.
Yeah,
Your
right.
partner is there. If they're aware of what they can do to help you heal, then I encourage people to let their partners in and getting to the root of it, getting to the root of what is that shame based on? Where did the trauma happen? And I just recommend working with a professional as a third party here
Yeah.
because it's it's deep stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I like people to move through it and find their healing in a way that is as easeful as possible.
Right, right. I really like what Brene Brown says about shame, that shame feeds off of silence, secrecy, and judgment. And
Yes.
so we want to keep it to ourselves because we're afraid of the judgment and we feel like we need to like hide it and keep quiet about it. And that
Yeah.
makes it more shameful.
Yes.
If you can open up to just that one person, or maybe that one person with a professional, that can start the healing process because it starts to dissipate the shame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely. Okay. Wow, we
Mm.
are actually getting through all these.
I know.
Okay, this is number 7.
Yeah.
There is a full spectrum of sexual flavors. Learning and accepting your inherent erotic nature is a core step in your journey.
This is one of the great truths about sexuality is that it's not a one size fits all. That we are all unique beings in our sexual um, preferences and it's all based on our sexual history, our past experiences, um, uh, our erotic inclinations.
Mhm.
Um, I love the uniqueness of everyone's sexuality. So understanding that you are unique kind of opens up the conversation between partners uh, to see sexuality in many different flavors, right?
Yeah.
Or energies, I like to say. And I think we all know what those are. We see them, hear about them. You can have a very kind of romantic inclination, where just love and heart is just such a big part of your sexual experience. Um, it can be very passionate, for some people, where it's just like they just got to get into that passion, like hot sex kind of experience. That's really what does it for them. Other people are a little kinkier in their flavors. They like to
Uh-huh.
explore. They like a little bit of edginess. That's their
Right.
peak moment. It's just fascinating. And when couples start to express what what gets them there
Mhm.
and what is that feeling and what's the feeling they're going for in a sexual experience, then they start to really learn, my partner is actually a little bit different from me, but I can meet them there and I can give them that experience in a way that they may not be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Long-term relationships have the capacity to numb us a little bit and to get us into routines
Mhm.
that I like to shake up a little.
Yeah.
I
I
find
can
that,
see where
yeah,
that would be handy, is shaking that up because you
shake it
just
up.
get in your rut.
Yeah,
This day, this
yep,
time, this position, this is what we're doing, like, and then we're
yep,
done and off, gonna go watch TV now. Like that,
yeah.
yeah.
And we know how the brain works
Mhm.
sexually when it comes to introducing new things, introducing some novelty, introducing some mystery. It lights us up in a way that reinvigorates our interest and enthusiasm. It's just the way our brains work.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what I like to introduce in a couple sexuality is that kind of novelty that will awaken something in them where they start to see their partner not as something or someone they know oh so well, but actually a human being who has their own inherent sexual desires and preferences and a sexual history before they met them, probably, and and ever evolving. That's the thing,
Yeah.
ever evolving. So
Yeah.
we're not just seeing our sexuality and our partner as the person we got together with umpteen years ago, but as an evolving human being, and being able to, as you say, just talk about sex as if you're talking about lunch in order to understand, how is my partner evolving? Who are they today? What do they want?
Yes.
And how can I give it to them?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's great. Great. And I can see this flow, and I know that you're covering all of this in your book. And your book is The Turned On Couple, Your Path to Lasting Love, Passion, and Pleasure. I love it. And
yeah, it's available. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sure it's on Amazon. I'm going to put a link to the book in the description of this
Thank you.
video. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Put a link to the paperback, because I really want people to have this book on their bookshelf. I
okay.
want it to be dog-eared with little post-it notes all the way through it. There's 65 standalone chapters in it. It covers so many topics. They can use it as a resource, or just open it up and read a chapter to their partner and then work on that week in their relationship. So there's lots of exercises in it, and just I want them to have it on their bookshelf as a resource book, because I think that's its greatest purpose, is
Yeah.
to something to go back and visit over and over again.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you've written it in a way that you can just pick and choose what you want to do today instead
That's
of
right.
read it from cover to cover.
That's right. That's
Sometimes
right.
a
I
little
mean,
daunting.
it does
Yeah.
have a progression, but it's also something you can just pick up.
Yeah. Nice.
Um,
That's
and
great.
I also really want people to know too that I work with couples, in sessions, private sessions. I work on Zoom, so I work with couples all over the country. And they can reach out to me as well at CorinneFarago.com, and they can see the spelling of my name on the book.
Yeah. And I'll put a link to that in the
Oh, thank you.
description too. So it's easy for people.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you so much.
I hope that this has been good for everybody in the audience, and you've gotten some ideas here, and
Yeah.
that you buy this book, because I think it's could really make a difference. Okay,
Uh,
take care,
Thank you so much,
everybody.
Julie.